Hello there, my name is That Fella, and today we are returning to the ever-so-lovely nation of Cyrodiil, but this time in the remaster that's really a remake. Now, I had originally intended for this video to be for the original version of the game, even considering wiping the dust from my old Xbox 360, but when this game got shadow dropped, I got so excited I couldn't help but move the challenge over to the PC. And with that, we must consider how do we go about beating the game this playthrough, as there are a number of ways to do so. This time around, I wanted to use a unique weapon, specifically Hrormir's Ice Staff. Now, the staff isn't necessarily good or bad. It has good effects, but not really cost-effective charges for its use. The real allure to this weapon is that it's a quest item that doesn't really get used by the players because they have to give it up to continue the Thieves Guild questline. So pretty often, even though it is a unique texture and just cool, most people don't use it for very long. However, you can steal it back and keep it as an item. So in this video, we ask the mundane and holistic question of, can you beat Oblivion with only Hrormir's Ice Staff? We're going to go ahead and start at the end of the tutorial, so that way I don't have my heart broken by a dying Patrick Stewart. Likewise, I had recently finished Dragon Age the Veilguard and decided why not make a bald elf. Additionally, I chose the steed as my birth sign because when you can only deal a certain type of damage, it's better to have running as an option. For skills, we're choosing non-combative ones for the most part, most notably acrobatics and athletics. As we all know, playing Oblivion, it is mandatory to jump and frolic around the plains of Hells and Breville. Upon leaving the prologue, we head straight to the Imperial City, sell what we have, do my best to read a wanted poster, and finally convince a beggar to tell us all about the illustrious Grey Fox. As I wait in the gardens to begin the quest, I get attacked by a rogue conjurer. I am defenseless as of right now, but luckily the people of the waterfront came together as a community does, and beat the living shit out of this old man. Armand explains the rules to us about the contest to join the Thieves Guild. I use the gold from the goods I sold earlier as a means of buying a ton of lockpicks, and I wait to allow Mesmetron to steal the diary, while I then steal the diary from her while she sleeps. A flawless plan I'm sure we've all done because we couldn't figure out Oblivion's mechanics when we were 10. However, the diary was not yet stolen, so instead I went to the arena and did what I could to steal from the arena hopefuls. While doing so, I realized there was a glitch. I could attempt to set the tumbler while one was secured and lose no picks for it while gaining experience. I got to level 100 in security very quick. I stole the bands of Quang Lao and returned to take what was rightfully mine, the diary of an old man I had never met. But first I sent it to level 11. Yep, level 1 to 11 that quick. Unfortunately though, I'm pretty positive most enemies can probably one-shot me now. I returned to the garden, gloated to Mesmetron, and gave the diary to Armand Kristoff.
Congratulations, you have returned with the diary. You have earned the right to join the Thieves Guild.
Now, I needed to fence items as a means of unlocking the Thieves Guild special jobs. Here's a great way to unlock some real quick. Head to Coral Castle, steal the Varlostone and some pelts, and just spend some real quick. I sold the bands of Quang Lao for 600 septims, the Varlostone for 550, and made up the other 50 with miscellaneous items. Meaning I had fenced 1200 septims, which is 200 over what we need to do the entire faction quest line. I took a short break from thieving to train my athletics and acrobatics, just a little bit. The first few Thieves Guild quests are pretty straightforward. First off, we steal the taxes back from the guards and return them to Armand. Next, we go off to Shadenhall to steal a bust depicting the face of the recently deceased Countess of Shadenhall. I sneak by the guard and go right for the statue. The dead come to life, as they often do, and I try to book it out of Shadenhall, only to be stopped by the wraith of the woman herself. Luckily, the boys in blue took care of her for me, and I returned to the Imperial City. Bad news arise. The waterfront is swarming with Imperial guards on the hunt for Armand Kristoff. Turns out this heist was a setup. Mesmetron and her diagonal roommate informed me of the plan. We're going to frame an informant of the guard as the real thief, sneaking the bust into her cupboards and having her arrested. As fun as narrating all these quests are, we're going to fast forward a bit to when the Ice Staff becomes more relevant. Shortly after I reached level 13, Mesmetron reached out for me to come meet her after the Imperial Guard decided once more to occupy the waterfront. There's a big heist being planned, and a big crux of it is to have Hrormir's staff stolen from the Archmage.
We've had our eye on Hrormir's staff for some time, but have been waiting for the wizards to be distracted.
We enter the Arcane University as stealthily as a cat, undetected by those who tout high-level magic, creeping into the Archmage's quarters and stealing the beautiful icy staff from the dresser at the end of his bed. Inspecting the staff, it kinda appears worse than what I remember. It is some kind of AoE effect, so it's good for crowd control, but 10 damage, not great, especially at level 13. I temporarily give the staff to Methridel and watch as the guard captain Lex get a letter delivered by Daedra. Upon returning, she tells me to return the staff by leaving it in the chest of a retired mage. Once in the chest, it is no longer marked as a quest item and isn't tied to the progression of the Thieves Guild any longer. I go to the Breville to end the quest with Scriva and...
The Arcane University is getting, if it is not returned
Oh,
soon.
I lied. It is still tied to the quest line. We leave the staff, end the quest, return to the city, grab the staff from the chest. It is no longer there. Surprisingly, it actually does get returned to the Archmage's bedroom, so we steal it once more. And now we can finally engage in combat as a real Wood Elf should. Which is fantastic because the next Thieves Guild quest actually requires us to fight a vampire. Although I really did think at one point that vampires had major frost resistance, but maybe I'm thinking of another game. Unfortunately, on my first attempt, I ran out of charges and couldn't defeat the Pale Lady, so I reloaded, left, and got as many soul gems as I could from local sources, and returned with more magic than I could ever care to use. We pretty much keep continuing the Thieves Guild quest until we get to the Jackman Imbil quest, but for whatever reason before that, I wanted to see how tough an Oblivion Gate would be. So I ran through the very gates of hell, jumping across mounds of lava, dodging fireballs and swords alike, drinking from the fountains as they made their way, doing all I could to complete the gate as soon as possible. And sure enough, I reached the sigil stone with ease. I triumphed and gloated, touching the stone as it glowed, and it just straight up killed me. But hey, 80 seconds to close the gate, not too shabby. Also, I caught vampirism at some point, don't know if it was from the Pale Lady or previous sexual exploits, but it's anyone's guess. Likewise, I stole the black hand robes from the house in Bruma, and finally made my way to Jackman Imbil's house to claim his lovely little boots that increase our acrobats by a whopping 50 points. So far, combat with Hrormir's staff hasn't been bad, just incredibly lackluster. As a staff, it just really sucks for damage output, and you basically need an endless supply of soul gems. This run was fun because of how goofy it is to jump around and dodge attacks while casting the staff's magic, but ultimately it's not a run I'd recommend to anyone. Without relying on acrobatics to get around, it would be pretty miserable otherwise. But now that we have the boots of Spring-Heeled Jack paired with Hrormir's staff, we are ready to take on Oblivion and get all the aid that Bruma could ever need.
I will send some of my best soldiers to bolster the Bruma garrison.
I will likewise help you by sending aid to Bruma. I will send my guard captain, Viera Laris, to Bruma's aid. Let no one say Leowyn did not do its part to uphold the Empire.
With the Oblivion Gate closed, I can now gladly send aid to Bruma.
I will now gladly send soldiers to aid in the defense of Bruma. Consider it done.
Are you ready to go?
However, now it was time for the greatest test, and we kill Umbra with Hrormir's staff. And of course, I'm joking about this. Any weapon with the slightest range can topple Umbra without stress. Umbra is an unfortunate case of really tough opponent who falls victim to geography. Funny enough, you can even bypass the Daedra quest if you're too low a level. If you start the quest from talking to his worshippers, you can approach the statue once you have the sword, and even though if you try and activate the statue beforehand, it will remain silent. As of now, there really haven't been any real obstacles in the way, but that changes with Sancretor, which is riddled with undead, specifically ghosts and wraiths, which are completely frost resistant, and the undead blades, which I believe have roughly 70% frost resistance, meaning my 10 damage per hit is brought down to a measly 3 per hit, which is not good at all. It was here I was considering how much I want to complete this run. After all, at this point I may as well do the duplication glitch on soul gems because I would not be getting that many soul gems to recharge the staff through legitimate means. But then I considered, can I just bypass the need to kill the undead blades entirely? I don't believe you can do the same Sancretor skip as you could for the 360 version, but I may be wrong. I didn't have any luck trying to replicate that one where you shoot a fireball at the Curus. However, I did manage to save and load my way into the barrier and grab the armor of Tiber Septum, completely bypassing the need for combat within Sancretor. When I tell you the relief that went through my mind in this moment. Next up was getting the stone, and honestly at this point just running has been my entire plan. Fighting undead with frost is miserable and for the birds. Martin handled all the talking points with the Countess. I oversaw the troops, and honestly, man, I do wish they fixed this bit for the remake. For as much work as you put into aid for Bruma, it's pretty disappointing when you look at how little it amounts to. I get that it's still Oblivion, but man, I would have loved to see an all-out fight between Bruma and the Daedra. We fought and fought, waiting for the big boy gate to finally open, and when it did, I did everything I could to speedrun it. And I want to say to this game's credit, the gates themselves are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this is literally what the trailer looks like, and I love it. There's really not that much combat left, so I'll switch over to the key moments now. The fight with Cathutet went by without a hitch. Evidently, being able to jump over someone really has its advantages. I hit level 17, and I'm ending the run with 100 endurance, agility, and speed. We ran into the ugly twins, whom I hate. Also, giving Raven a goatee was an interesting choice. The fight with Mankar Cameron and his disgusting offspring was tougher than I expect. Sure, he has some innate magic absorption and damage reflection, but I know I did think this one was going to be easier, and it was not. Looking at the timeline, it was a straight up 10-minute long fight. With his children being able to respawn and him being pretty tanky towards magic, my 10 points of damage really wasn't amounting to very much. This actually did make me appreciate the endgame fight a bit more. I never had too many problems with it in the past, but now I'm seeing it can be a bit of a struggle if you go into it unprepared. But being the player character, of course we end up triumphing and slaying Dagon's favorite, Abomination. We return to Martin victorious, escorting him to the temple after Dagon invades, and with that, we beat Oblivion with only Hrormir's staff. Thank you so much for watching. I apologize for this being a bit more of a boring run. Unfortunately, it was a much cooler concept in my head than what it was in execution. But nonetheless, let me know if you want to make more videos like this. Maybe we'll do some suggestions. Maybe I'll go back in our old videos and see what the comments were. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day.